Welcome to the Nurse Life Coach Academy podcast, where Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, talk all about how to get certified and practice professionally as a nurse life coach.
Hey, welcome back to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. It's Nurse Life Coach Academy edition, and I am doing a student interview with one of our students from Cohort 1. This is going to be with Angie Mendoza, and Angie is a critical care BSN nurse currently working in NICU. She's about 3 months into certification, and she's been one of the students that is just, I think you let me coach you really early on. Like, you just played full out. And when I thought about interviewing students for future students to listen to, I thought about you. So did you want to just introduce yourself really quickly?
Oh, thank you so much. Have some experience of I want to say 6-7 years. It's getting older now. Years of nursing. Started in med-surg. I've done adult ICU. I've done travel nursing. And now I'm in NICU. But long story short, I think all encompassing, I've always cared for the bedside and wanted to know more about the person themselves. And then I stumbled upon the Successful Nurse Coach and Nurse Life Coach Academy. And that's when I truly was like, wow, this is what I'm made for.
Oh, I know that feeling. That's such a good feeling.
And it was nice because it was one of our other, someone else from our cohort who introduced me to Nurse Life Coach Academy. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. But she shared your podcast. I went ahead to start listening to the podcast episodes. And I feel like I've never been more heard or seen in what I envisioned and wanted my nursing role to be.
Yeah.
And that's really just diving deeper into our human nature.
Yeah.
Of who we are, what our role is here on earth, and realizing that we all have a potential. And sometimes it just takes a certain amount of environment or container is what we've been calling it to really see that we have that potential.
Yeah. When you got into nursing, was it different than you thought it would be when you started clinical practice?
Yeah, it was. I knew that there was going to be, of course, taking care of the sick. My background of why I went into nursing was my grandmother. She had breast cancer. And this was when I was in high school. And so when you're in high school, this is a time to start thinking about what you want to do in your career. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Eventually, when she did pass, and when just that whole journey and that chapter of her having cancer, seeing my mom go through it, being a part of that, taking care of her through the ups and downs, that's really what drew me to nursing and being in and out of the hospital. Yeah. And so once I started working, you would think that's kind of what it is, taking care. But then you don't realize that there's so much overhead in regards to management, all this magnet status stuff, all this joint commission stuff.
Yeah.
So a bunch of charting, so much that kind of takes you away from really just being at the bedside.
Right.
And so those are the things that you don't expect to come across when you're going into clinicals or,
Yeah. So you had a deep desire to connect with other human beings, ease suffering, be present with them, like the way that you did with your family. You're I want to be able to do this for other people.
Yeah.
And then once you get in, you realize I don't have time.
No.
Or there's just not enough time. Not all the time. I would just say in general, there's this sense of always behind, always in a rush. And if you are giving somebody your presence, you're giving it from a cup that's already empty on shift because you've got 1,000 tabs open on the browser.
Yeah.
I remember having that same thought as you, Angie, of oh, this is why God made me become a nurse. Like, oh, good. I don't have to leave the I don't have to leave or like go do another thing. Like, I think I can still, there's a reason why I'm here. And I got so excited about it, like same as you. So as you enrolled and you started learning about the art and science of nurse coaching and started working with private clients, what has it felt like? Like, give me some examples of, have you had some of that need met that you were looking for?
Yeah, it's nice because, you have a lot of different individuals that you're working with.
Yeah.
And so you see different arrays of styles as well.
Yeah.
So that's been really interesting. And realizing there's this quote I once heard is that people can only meet you as much as they've met themselves.
Yeah.
And that truly has been what I've seen in nurse coaching. And it's nice to, one, not be attached to the outcome as what you always taught us in our course.
Yeah.
But I have definitely seen fulfillment in it, especially with some of my clients who have been able to reach their goals
Yeah.
by the end of our sessions.
Yeah. What are some of the goals that you got to work with people in?
Yeah, I got to help someone with certifying their OR certification,
Oh, cool.
and also realizing that she can jump ship, leave her career in her hospital where she's been sacrificing so much of her time in, to now focus on herself, on wanting to do travel nursing, which is something that she's been wanting to do, and really believing in herself to be able to have that certification and to
Yeah.
have all her ducks in a row to realize that, oh, I can do this. I can set up time on my own to be able to accomplish all that I seek out to do.
Hmm. Was she kind of stuck before and then just through, you had 6 or 7 sessions with her. So through that time, she just got belief in herself and was able to start taking action and moving forward. And you were able to do that in 6 sessions with her?
Yeah. And I think it was also a good time for both of us
Yeah.
where she knew this is what I want to do, but I kind of
Mm,
want to kind of like push me along and be kind of a cheerleader and also help me schedule things out and keep it
yeah.
simple as well.
Awesome. Awesome. What else have you coached on? Anything surprising?
So, one, I mean, the outcome of this was, it was okay. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to share that not every client is going to, be like my first client. Uh,
Yeah.
there's some people who are going to meet you exactly as where they are, and
Yeah.
have obstacles that come their way. And it truly is about them being able to meet you there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do that within 5, 6, 7 sessions
Right.
because, they're meeting you for the first time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, I know you, but I don't know you. So I'm not yet ready to even go there myself yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people take a lot longer to drop in, to trust, I remember very clearly having a private 6 month client who was a mom at my kid's preschool many, many years ago. And many months into our coaching program, she confided something startling and shocking but didn't feel safe to tell me for 16 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
then with that new piece of information, it was so much, it was the missing piece. Like I could sense there was something, but I couldn't find it. And I was kind of puzzled, but it took her 4 months of meeting me almost every week to be like, like to build that relationship, to build that trust for her to say, this is the actual truth of what's happening. And I felt so honored.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the only person she'd ever told, you know?
Yeah.
So it takes time. I think that in certification, you guys get to start with so many different people, but when you have these longer containers of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, there's like miraculous things that happen when you're further in and you really are in that coaching relationship because you know them. You start
Yeah.
to really know them. Yeah.
And I think that's been the hardest part going
Because
into
you
this.
just want to keep going.
sometimes you just want to dive in already, get into the deep coaching aspect of it.
Yeah.
But what's been so nice is, the book by Leon Vanderpool.
Yeah.
There is something he had said where if you are so focused on wanting to get there, then it's about you. It's not about them anymore.
Right.
You have to make that distinction of knowing when to tread those waters and when to pull back.
Oh, I'm in a deepening course with him now, and that is practice. It is practice 9, cultivate the trust in the mystery and magic of transformation. Because as the coach, a lot of times we are, and his coaching is very spiritually based. So in his style of coaching, it's like spirit's doing all the work. You're just holding space for the transformation to occur. You're the cocoon, but all the ooey gooey stuff's happening on the inside is spirit. And from that perspective, I'm getting chills. It's so easy to allow.
Yeah.
To slow down, to like cry with your client, to celebrate your clients, and then there's some clients who are like, no, I want to be pushed. I want accountability.
They want a drill master.
Yes. Yeah. And that's coaching too. And so like you were saying, like it's like figuring out your client and like how to be and trying on different ways of being with them.
Yeah.
Has the training so far affected, like, tell me about how it affects your personal life. For me, it really affected my personal life, but to the degree that you feel comfortable sharing. But have you noticed any differences outside of just the coaching cert and your clients?
I love that question because that's definitely what I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite lesson that we've had was the authenticity lesson of where am I showing up authentic in my life? And that's really allowed me to kind of like shift and realize where I'm being inauthentic and where I am being authentic, whether that's in my friendships, in my familial relationships, at work. And so, one, it's allowed me to have a deeper understanding of where my parents came from. That's one example of wanting to cultivate that relationship I have with them and really like taking it for what it is and realizing I'm 28 now. I still have a whole lot of years ahead of me. But as I'm growing, my parents are also aging too. So that's one thing that I realize being authentic for me is I'm very family oriented. And so really trying to hone in on those relationships I have with my parents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you they love that.
Yeah, they do. Just went out with my mom. We went to a light show like down the street from me. I live down the park. So she loved it.
Oh.
She was like, thank you for spending that time with me. And I was like, my heart is melting. Truly, at the end of the day, she reminds me of someone who loves connection, loves spending time, quality time. And so that was really special.
So for you, when you thought of authentic Angie, family, like how you want to be with your family, like that became something that popped up to the surface of like, I want to own that this is really important to me. Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah. And it's also that with family and also entirely just with the relationships I have and trying to feed into the relationships that really matter to me.
Yeah.
It also comes maybe with being in your 20s of realizing people come and go.
Yeah.
But it's allowed me to really be present in the friendships that are adding to my bucket and what relationships aren't. And being okay with that too. Because that's something that can be uncomfortable.
It's almost like you take a certification, has you put on a new pair of glasses. So you start seeing things just slightly different. And then part of the difficulty of transformation for our students and for how it was for me, and then also for our clients is like, as we change, our relationships can change too. And so there's a percentage of our relationships that are pumped, like your mom's like, oh, I just want to connect with Angie and spend time with her. And like, look, she's prioritizing that. And then there can be other relationships, and this isn't, some familiar relationships get worse with transformation. So I want to acknowledge that as well. But it's almost like friends are like, oh, you've changed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's difficult. There's difficult parts to transformation. It can end up getting more lonely first before you find deeper connection. But through that lens of authenticity, it kind of had you see what was most important to you.
Yeah. And it challenges you to really see what is it that you value? Like, what do you want at the end of this life? If, say, maybe I'm 90 years old now, what's something that I feel happy that I've done or,
Yeah.
kept in my life?
Mm. There's a book everybody should read called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. And she was a hospice nurse, and she talks about it's like the same 5 things. She would spend time with dying people as their like personal hospice nurse. And she would say that they're like always the same things, and it's haunting.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you read that book or you go through a coaching cert, anytime you do anything where there's like fearless self-reflection, you're like, oh, I'm off. Like I have these values over here, but then my life does not quite reflect what all these values that I proclaim to have are. Like it's this moment of like, oh, I have some adjusting to do. How has
Yeah.
it affected you at work? I wonder.
So it's actually been good because, being in the NICU, there's something called primary nursing,
Mm-hmm.
where you stick with one baby, and that baby, every single time you go in, is going to be the baby that you have. And so prior to that, it wasn't like this. You would get things based off rotation. You can get the sick baby now. You put that in your rotation. Next time you come in, you might have a baby that's just working to bottle feed and working to go home. But since doing this course, I was like inclined to want to do primary nursing and to even because the thing with primary nursing is that you can get a baby who's premature, born at 23 weeks, and you're with them every step of the way.
Right. And the family.
Yeah, and the family. And the uncomfortable part of it has always been you don't know that every day is gonna be hectic or not, or if every day is gonna be, smooth and sailing.
Right.
And I remember talking to my boyfriend about this, and I was like, I think I want to do something more meaningful at work, and I want to try to do this. And he said, yeah, that's kind of cool. You get to see the baby grow. And then I kind of like stepped away. He's not in nursing. He's a trainer. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I do get to see the baby grow. And with that, I've been able to see her step by step in all the uncomfortables and also all the good points and all the milestones at the same time of being witness to the mom seeing her baby grow as well. So it's nice to know how to sit in the low points.
Yes.
I think it's that saying, being comfortable with sitting in pain.
Yeah.
Because not every day is going to be rainbows and sunshines.
No, it's Leon would say expanding your capacity to be with pain and allow healing moments. And so, yes. And with a 23-week-old, so I get what you're saying. So that could be difficult if you were the nurse with the 23-week-old, the primary nurse, because you could have tougher shifts possibly because of the acuity of, right? And so the way that you take care of nurses is just to kind of spread out more acute cases. Is that kind of the thought if you didn't have continuous care?
Exactly.
And yet for you, you're like, oh, I'm confident enough to go be with all of it, even if the baby didn't make it, even if like the worst case scenarios like that it's like that deep sense of knowing that there's even value in me getting to be the nurse for that. And I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And all the good stuff too, like all the amazing stuff. Yeah.
And it's been nice to know the tools of how to approach the mom as well.
Yes. How? Ooh, okay. This is gold. I'm so excited right now. Like I'm getting tears in my eyes. Um, how has it changed the way that you felt like you could be with a mom? Because the mom, I can only imagine. I'm a parent, so I've never had a baby in NICU for any long period of time, but I've had babies who are sick, and I can tell you it's the worst moment of your whole life, really. So, how was like, tell me more about that, the confidence that you had with baby's mom.
It's been nice to know how to answer or ask open questions, powerful questions.
Yes.
So some that just come to mind of, ones that I have asked are, what are your fears? Or
Ooh,
what are you excited about? Um, what are you carrying on that I might not be seeing? So it's been nice to have that kind of one-on-one
yeah.
and have a conversation just even outside of, her baby's care
Right.
to know where her thoughts are going.
She's never going to forget you. She will never. I just talked about this on a podcast episode of a nurse I had. It's like when you get blessed with a nurse that has the capacity to be that present with you, they become a forever part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm getting so teary-eyed. Oh, yeah. I became a nurse because when I was in my early 20s, like you, had a family member with a TBI, and she was in a coma for 12 weeks in ICU, like neuro ICU for 4 months. And so I would go up there regularly. So I just remember like having good nurses and bad nurses. And at some point I'm like what we had a really bad nurse, like
Mm-hmm.
no presence, like just talking
Yeah.
about like their weekend. And I'm like worried that my aunt's going to die. And I'm like in crisis and in anxiety and not knowing what's going on. And she just came in talking about whatever, like didn't acknowledge me. And I remember thinking, gosh, if I was a nurse, I would be so much better. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
made me go to nursing school is it was like that moment of like, I could do your job better than you could do your job. And I had never even like thought about it, but it was more of the awareness that anybody in the hospital as a patient or a family member is going through one of the most vulnerable times in their whole life. And then it doesn't take much.
Mm-hmm.
It's like not much. Just like, how are you? Can I
Yeah.
get you? Like, right? Like, what's one of your biggest fears or what's the heaviest thing you're feeling right now? And taking, if you have 5 minutes, that's all. The whole shift would feel different. The whole time you were sitting there bedside would feel different. And that mom's going to remember you forever. So what you described is your own confidence and ability to sit with pain, to trust the transformation process, and then bringing into like clear view what you want, what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's not little things. Those are good things.
Because, we go by our day to day and, sometimes it's, another 12-hour shift for us.
Right.
But then we forget that this 12-hour shift is someone's like make it or break it.
Yeah, it's the worst. Yeah. In the ICU, I loved being the nurse on duty with a patient when they passed. And I always would get the end of life because of the way I could be with the families.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it because I knew they would never, like how I was on that shift in that moment with that family would imprint upon them forever. And I knew I could do it well because it
Yeah.
didn't take much, That's where I think purpose came. And then but there's also the frustration in some roles where there just wasn't space for that, where I had two patients almost dying at the same time and I'm running from room to room and we're short and I haven't peed or eaten. And, like it's hard to be present when you have to pee and you're starving.
No, that's true. And one other thing that I feel that I'm hoping to help implement is kind of
Yeah.
a Zen room.
Yeah.
So I've been working with my educator on that. Hopefully we can
Yeah.
make it of something where we can acknowledge that we do go through burnout.
Yeah.
And I think it's been nice to have this, like this coaching because I feel like I'm really stepping into the role of like
leader,
wellness and like leader and taking care of ourselves.
I had a call with a nurse practitioner, NICU FNP, works in a very, very busy, high acuity 93 baby NICU. And so she's taking our training next cohort, but her goal is to have nurse coaches on staff to support all the NICU nurses. And she thinks that her organization is going to pay for it. Wow. So that she has her master's in psychology. Like she's done everything. I'm like, you're overqualified. You know more than I do. I'm just going to give you the little training. But she talked about how it wouldn't have taken much. It doesn't take much to support that staff of nurses who are seeing like the kind of workplace that you work in, Angie. Like to have a nurse coach come to you. How are you? What's the heaviest thing you're carrying? How has it been going? Like just someone to care for you, even just 1 hour per month would be like extraordinary. So I'm planting that seed for potential in your department.
Yes.
We'll get some case studies and then we'll present some stats and you can go present it to your leaders and be like, I'd like to be the nurse coach on staff to support our staff. I'd like one of my shifts to be a coaching shift. And here's how it's going to save your organization money and have better patient outcomes.
Yeah. Staff retention.
Yeah. Staff retention. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else that came to mind when you're thinking about, I mean, you're about 3 months into the journey. So I'm just so proud of you guys. You guys are all doing amazing, but I loved how you just leaned in and went for it from day one. And I'd love to know anything else that comes to mind you'd like to share.
That there's just so much potential in this field. You can really make nurse coaching whatever you want it to be, whatever fits you, your personality, and the type of clients that you want. They eventually, I think, will come forth.
Yeah.
It takes 1, practice, 2, experience, and 3, just this trusting the process.
Yeah, that good old trusting the process that so many of us struggle with. Right? Like so much fear and doubt and pain and suffering could be eased with just that if there was some way to just trust.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel we're sometimes so stuck on the control aspect of wanting to control our life. And in some ways it's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we let go of that control and just allow things to manifest in their own way and to bring that energy forth, things will unfold.
Yes. Better than you could imagine.
Mm-hmm.
In supernatural ways, I would even say. It's almost as if the more trust that you have, the more, I think it's probably a bigger conversation than this podcast, but I think that we inherently know who we are and what we're supposed to do here. And the more we can relinquish control, the more opportunities show up for us to step into that. And that's like part of that authenticity, right? As opposed to trying to be something for everybody else or fit into a box or be how we think we should be, the story of ourselves and our lives. And I find that students unburden so much of that within CERT.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Angie, thank you so much for a half hour here and sharing. And I want to put it out to the universe that Angie's NICU needs a nurse coach on staff, and she would be excellent to lead the department one day after she gets her Zen in.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, guys. You're welcome. All right, guys, come see us in the free Facebook group. Message us if you have any questions. And thanks so much for listening.